Hello, everyone. In this lecture, we are going to be learning about liquidity ratios. And upon further examination, we will be looking at how to calculate the current ratio and the quick ratio, also known as the acid test. So as we've said in several other lectures, the several ratios that management and investors alike use to measure the financial health and stability of an organization. And in this lecture, we're covering liquidity ratios. So liquidity ratios are used to measure a company's ability to pay its short-term debt. So this is different than the solvency ratios, which was used to look at how a company pays its long-term debt. A higher current ratio is always more favorable because it shows that the company can more easily make current debt payments. And when we refer to current or short-term, we mean anything that can be paid back in a year or less. This is a ratio that lenders and investors use to determine if they're going to invest with the company or if a bank is going to lend a company more money. So as an example, if a company has a current ratio of 4, it means that the company has 4 times the amount of assets to pay off its short-term debt. Anything under 1 indicates the company has more debt than assets. And anything above 1 indicates that the company has enough assets or that they can sell if they need to pay off their short-term debt. The numbers to calculate the quick and current ratios come from the balance sheet. So again, we're looking at Intel's balance sheet, and we're going to look at their current assets divided by their current liabilities, which will give us the current ratio. So as you can see, in 2020, the current ratio was 1.91, almost 2, which means they have more assets than they do debt, which is a good position to be in. And in 2019, that number was 1.40. So they've actually increased their number in 2020. So what does this mean? The higher the ratio, the better. Ratios under 1 can indicate that the company may run short of cash. And if the ratio is too high, it could indicate that a company is sitting on its cash rather than investing it. So again, this is one of those things where you would want to do an industry comparison with another company to see where Intel sits within the industry. So the next calculation is the quick ratio or the acid test. And this is where you take your current assets and you minus out your inventory and then divide it by your current liabilities. And the reason that you're taking out your inventory is because there are times when inventories are much harder to move. So you want to just look at a really quick glimpse that, without including inventory, what would the current ratio or quick ratio be. So in 2020, Intel had a quick ratio of 1.57, and in 2019 it was 1.01, which means it's getting better. So one thing to note here, if a company does not have inventory on their balance sheet, which may be in the example of a service company, your quick and current ratios would be the same, because if you minus out inventory and that number is 0, current and quick ratios will be the same. If a company does have inventory, the quick ratio will always be lower than the current ratio. So in this lecture, we've learned about liquidity ratios, which is another key metric to measure a company's ability to meet its short-term debt obligations. And this is commonly used by lenders and investors. The information comes from the balance sheet. Liquidity ratios under 1 indicates a company will have a difficult time paying off its short-term debt. With the current ratio, anything over 1 is considered good, and the calculation is current assets divided by current liabilities. And the quick ratio is the same calculation, but it minuses out inventory.